but we called it the poop and swoop, because you'd come in, just like you'd poop all over the stuff, and you just kind of like swoop right out. So the story was, my co-facilitator and I, we designed the thing. The client was happy. The night before showtime, we go out for dinner with the senior person of the consultancy. We have a nice meal. It was lovely. And then the check comes. And then the senior person was like, the thing about the whole plan for the next 2 days, and just like, ripped it apart, right? Like said that we should change all the things. And we were kind of like, cool. So it's late at night, and you'd be like, okay, so I'm going to clean this up, but I can't lie that it was like, ooh, this is grinding.
You just got us drunk. No kidding.
Literally.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Workplace Weirdness, the non-HR HR podcast where we dive into the strangest office situations and most awkward workplace dramas. I'm your host, Maya Kadar Kovalsky, and I'm a former chief culture officer and head of people. I've seen and heard it all, so truly no judgments. This is a safe space to get real and explore the cringy, confusing, or chaotic side of office life. So grab your coffee, kick back in your swivel chair, and listen up. We've got a fun episode for you today filled with facilitation tips, plus a few listener questions to keep things weird. There's a listener who needs to pivot after a layoff, a department training leader left reeling after some negative feedback, and a pet-friendly office that might become, well, less so. But first, I want to welcome the principal facilitator, consultant, and founder of the group Forward, Hannah Dubin, here today. Hannah specializes in building high-functioning team dynamics and facilitating meetings and workshops that drive real results. Her firm, the Group Forward, offers services in training, consulting, facilitation, and coaching. Her past clients include the New York Times, Shopify, Squarespace, Mount Sinai Hospital System, American Academy of Pediatrics, Grow NYC, as well as tech startups and dozens of summer camps across North America. Previously, before running her own consultancy, Hannah worked as a facilitator with General Assembly and the Design Gym. And before that, she was a summer camp director. Hannah, I'm delighted to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I think it's incredible that you've worked in so many settings as a facilitator, but the summer camp setting really surprised me. Did you love camp growing up?
I did love camp growing up. And it was the thing that if I were to ever have anxiety dreams or happy dreams, it was always at camp. So it was always in the back of my mind. And then as I continued to grow up and do the things that I did, I wanted to work at camp, which I did. And then ended up often training camp leaders. And then the people who ran the camp said, could you come in and tell us how to do what you're doing? And then before you know it, you end up realizing you can help at any point in the hierarchy, right? And if you do it right, then you're creating the best opportunities for young people to have a good time. And I often, I adore camp. And my kids go to camp now, and it's awesome.
That's great. Well, I mean, then there's a ripple effect. I was going to say, if you're helping people who are, sort of the ones who manage the camps and, I don't know, set the curriculum or set other aspects of the whole experience, then you're actually at the end of the day helping your end user, which are the kids, the people who go to camp, the campers.
Yeah.
So how did you get into facilitation, and how do you keep rolling with the new technical and business developments?
So I would say, how did I get into it? So always saw the opportunity, wanted to run meetings, run sessions, gather people together, and make sure everybody had a chance to be heard and seen. Then in university, so I went to Acadia University in Nova Scotia, Canada. You might notice that from my up-talking. But I actually took a facilitation class in my undergrad work. So I studied recreation management. And our professor, Professor Wendy Bedingfield, she should have written a book on facilitation, truly. Athletic Association in Canada, how there's NCAA in the States, right? There's that in Canada. So basically all the athletic departments of universities across Canada. She was the president of that. I believe she might have been one of the first female presidents in that particular role. every head of university athletics in Canada at the time that she was president was a male, and she was the first female. And she asked the question to the group as a facilitator, not as a president. Like, she was wearing her facilitator hat, where she said, right now, scholarship money or money for athletes are going to males across all Canadian universities. And females, that's not the same for females. Do we actually believe that that value is true? Is that what we think about sports in Canada? And over the course of the year, she just asked those questions to those leaders. And over the course of, I think, a year or 2-year process, she managed to facilitate the group to the decision of all funding will be equal, because that's what we value. And she showed us her facilitator notes on the first day of class. And I remember being like, oh, that's how you change the world. You don't change the world by telling them what to do. You change the world by asking people, do you want to explore this question with me? And what do we want to
Wow, chills. I
do,
think that
right?
that's so amazing. And I think
Yeah.
that is really beautiful because it's like we don't really think of facilitation sometimes as essentially a negotiation strategy or something like that. And I'm not saying that that's all it is. I mean, but it's one of the ways that you can, like you said, you can engage in conversation, especially in our society that is like lacking a little bit of discourse lately.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like the first time that I studied it.
Hmm.
I just was so inspired by the idea of like facilitation as a real professional distinction, right? And
Hmm.
so then went off and got training with an organization that I think does phenomenal facilitation work. And I think I was like 1 year out of university, I took that course, and that just informed like the backdrop of how I pretty much run any group session. Like, it's ingrained in how I think, and then figuring out what the path is forward, which I think is it's the name of my firm, right? How do we move groups forward? And it, like, forward looks really different to every group, to every context. And it's our job as facilitators to figure out, like, we're the experts on process and the group are the experts on the content. Right. So how can I design a way for the group to have the right conversations to get them to where I think they can get in the amount of time we have?
That's incredible. You know, in businesses, I think that there is a lot of antagonism towards meetings and meeting culture and overly meeting. So I know that's not what a facilitation really is. And yet, what could we learn?
Your meetings are your culture,
Mm,
period.
okay.
So by that, I mean, a meeting is one of many tools you've got at your disposal to do great work. I'd say default meeting is lazy. I am noticing more and more and more, certainly in a post COVID land, totally get it. And I'm not that different either. But what I know is that sometimes it's just so much, and we don't have time to do. We're like, oh, I know that when we do have time, it's so much better. And when we design all the things and we're thoughtful about the curation and we send the agenda out in advance, it goes better. And then we just like don't do it because we're too busy. And so that's fair too. And so I think that, like, how we get better at meeting facilitation is we ask ourselves, like, what does success look like at the end of the given time? And then also, how can I design for the humans in this experience, right? How do I want the humans to feel before, during, after the experience? You might have plowed through and crushed it on goal one, but everybody feels like crap. Then, like, was that worth it?
Yeah, you're making me run through every like meeting I've ever had to run. So like I'm like thinking back about all kinds of things. But anyway, great. So how does AI factor into any of this? Like, I mean, what are you hearing? Does it change something in the culture of facilitation or meetings?
We're experimenting, right? Like, just like everybody. I think it's like a good practice. I'm working with a team right now where they, like, this is one of the topics they want to explore. Like, what do we want our point of view on AI to be with our workforce? And they've been sorting like different insights from the industry or from trends, whatever. And so there was one that Shopify put out. I don't know if you read it. Did you see this? The manifesto.
No, I didn't.
One of the manifesto points is something like, you have to justify a hire, but first you have to prove that AI can't help you with it. Like, there was some, it was a pithy way of. I
Got
was like,
it.
huh.
Interesting.
It's more like, I feel like I'm just like watching the companies and teams that we're working with. I feel like the experimentation one is a good one. It's like,
Mhm.
how do you encourage your workforce to be rewarded for experimentation? Right? Like,
Mm.
is that the prompt? And like in there, Like our goals are around efficiency, you choose. And like AI might very well be, and there's so many tools like just bustling, right? Options and like they're coming at you in all different directions.
But I love the idea of, I guess in our previous chapter, it was about how to get everybody technologically to the same place. And if we encouraged experimentation, I think that's a really smart way of doing it. In other words, of giving sort of low stakes type of opportunities for people to experiment, because otherwise, some people will be really stuck behind and they won't feel like that, like it's an inclusive type of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
What's great about what you're sharing with us, though, is that it's really interesting because you get to basically have a peek into a cross section of different businesses. So, I ask everybody this question, but I really want to hear from you. What is your weirdest workplace moment?
Oh my goodness. Listen, I don't know if it's the weirdest one, but this one came to mind. So, um, I was working with a different consultancy. I still had my own shop, but I didn't have quite enough clients to run my own show. So I was working with a different consultancy, and myself and another co-facilitator had designed this like 2-day session. It was great. The client, full trust of the client. They were into it. We'd done all the prep work. We go, we travel, we're ready to rock. And the senior person of this other consultancy was like, I'm going to come and just be there because this is a big deal client. Amazing. Of course, this is your firm. Like you do you. And I totally had a great relationship with this person. And they almost had a fair amount of like self-awareness of their own tendencies. And there was also a power dynamic at play, right? And that's just like the workplace weirdness. That's just what it is. And I knew how I fit into it, but I can't lie that it was like, ooh, this is grinding. So the story was my co-facilitator and we designed the thing. The client was happy. The night before showtime, we go out for dinner with the senior person of the consultancy. We have a nice meal. We don't even really talk about work. It was lovely. And then the check comes. And then the senior person was like, the thing about the whole plan for the next 2 days, and just like, ripped it apart, right? Hadn't offered any feedback up to that point, like said that we should change all the things. We had full client buy-in to the plan. We felt good about the plan, all the bits. And we were kind of like, cool. So it's late at night. We were going to go back to the
You
hotel.
just got us drunk. No
Yeah,
kidding.
literally. In fairness, there might have been some, glasses of wine at play, right?
Exactly.
So everybody's warmed up appropriately, but now we're like being asked to redesign the whole thing. But the client has already said yes to the plan that we had. So it's like,
Mm.
what do you mean? And what was funny about this fellow, and he's the best, like really had a really positive relationship with him. He just always wanted to open. He kind of like was very comfortable opening things back up all the time. And there is a time where that's appropriate, and there's a time where that's really not. And so my co-facilitator and I, we have a good relationship with this person. We were able to like use this as a joke later, but we called it the poop and swoop, because you'd come in, just like you'd poop all over the stuff, and you just kind of like swoop right out, and you'd be like, okay, so I'm gonna clean this up. And in the end, we ended up doing the plan that we had done, but it was like the tension lived for the 2 days, which was kind of too bad, because the client was delighted with what we had done. But you got the sense that the way that the senior partner wanted to do things, they wanted their say, but at that point, it was kind of like the ship had sailed, right?
Right, 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 right.
I heard this great term the other day, which I adore. Would love to know what you think about it. It was called power literacy. Like,
Mm.
feel in the workplaces, we need to be able to acknowledge that there is a literacy to understanding power dynamics. And sometimes, if you don't have that literacy and you don't understand your role within, you can end up quite frustrated. But
Mm.
that in some cases, it's like, maybe you're just not that literate on like what your position of power is in this moment.
No, you're absolutely right. It sort of reminds me of like when in the Devil Wears Prada, how the boss, when she like looks a certain direction, they know that it's a no or something like that.
Yes.
Like there's some sort of,
You press the
it's like,
lips
so exactly. She
and
purses her lips. That's it.
presses
You
the
got
lips
it.
and like they
Oh
like
no.
name the different, yes, 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 yes.
I know that's not exactly what you're talking about, but still, I have a sense that you're right, that there's moments where people are almost unaware of how powerful they are when they
Yeah.
walk into a room, or how their vote can sit with others or can confuse people. But anyway, wonderful. We learned about the poop and swoop. So thank you very much.
Workplace weirdness. Yep.
Yeah, totally. Well, now, Hannah, before we get to our listener questions, let's stay up to date with the week in work, our take on a recent news story that might affect how we work or how we think about work life. So, Forbes published an article on how AI is reshaping the workplace, and I'd love to hear your take. In short, companies like Klarna, UPS, Duolingo, Intuit, and Cisco are leaning into AI hard. The result is that there are now mass layoffs, and they aim to cut costs and boost productivity to keep up with economic pressures. AI is now doing the work of humans in areas like customer service, translation, sales support, and tech operations. This is raising real concerns about job security across a wide range of industries. Also, what's interesting and a little unsettling is that companies that announce AI adoption often see their stock prices jump. So now there's a financial incentive to automate quickly, which only accelerates the shift away from human labor. It's a fascinating and slightly nerve wracking moment for leaders who are grappling with how to incorporate AI into their company systems or even into their products as well as into their workforce. So, how are leaders in spaces that you've been dealing with this new reality? What did you think about what you heard about Duolingo, for instance?
Yeah, I lightly followed. So on the Duolingo, I did find it interesting. They announced like, we're doing it. We're going all in on AI, right? And then you can just look at that post on LinkedIn and you can see there are some people who just immediately were like, and I have unsubscribed. I've been a subscriber for 10 years and I'm out. No, thank you. I was here for community and for learning. And I reject the idea that this is like straight up, robot times. And so that's interesting. Like, yeah, like what the article said, I guess, like, this is money making opportunity and it's not necessarily workforce
Driven.
development related.
Yeah. So, and do you think that that's maybe part of the reason why why they made such a grand announcement? What do you think they thought they were going to get?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So like there is some provocativeness around like you got to join the AI conversation. Again, not a PR professional, but there like some of that is happening, right? That we're
Absolutely.
super relevant. We're doing the thing that everybody's talking about, right? So like I have a team right now that I'm working with, and they're asking the question of before the AI question is just how can our workforce be as efficient as possible, right? How can we work smart? And if AI is one of the tools that helps us get there, great. Or is a smarter way to think about it of what are the two teams that if they really dominated and got like extra training or extra support or like some cool agent was like infused into the work that they're doing, they were way more efficient and these activities that nobody liked anyways could be replaced by a bot.
Right.
Like, amazing, right? So like, is
That's
there
really
a way
smart.
that we
Yeah.
can think
Hmm.
about it like that instead of just like, this is it. This like you got to learn. So that's it. I'm just saying, like, is that a smarter way to think about the design question?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I feel like there is fear around AI, and anything we can do to dissipate that fear, I think, is a positive. On the other hand, the fear comes from this end of the world scenario where we think robots are taking over the world. And so, in places where it's celebrated in a public way, like with this LinkedIn post of Duolingo, I guess what the message is of people unsubscribing is take it a little slower. We're not there yet. By the way, I don't think that the AI would ruin the community feel of Duolingo, just my own personal opinion there.
Mm,
But I understand that it's hard to stomach. And it's also on the other level, as a person who loves work culture, I don't really know that everything can be replaced by the AI. Again, it's about how we support our human culture with the possibilities that AI can bring us to work more efficiently, to work faster, to get rid of some of that busy work that we hate.
exactly. And that gives you a boost and all that good stuff. And like it takes a minute to learn how to use them well. It does need to change the way in which we work to leverage it. Or at least what I've noticed, you're going to have to experiment with how you spend your time with it.
I think early on in AI journey, I took a class and then I shared it with my colleague, Felicia. And then I remember we had a meeting, I think, where we were like experimenting together. So, in other words, bringing it into our work culture and having fun with it because it's not supposed to be completely heavy and it's not supposed to be a doomsday kind of feel. But I just want to take a second to explain what design thinking is because we've said it a lot. And I don't know that all of our listeners know what that is.
So, design thinking, sometimes also called interchangeably human centered design, The simple way to think about it is when you have a problem or a challenge, how do you bring the people who are going to be the users or the recipients of the thing that you're building into the design process right from the beginning? Meaning, are you solving something that people actually want solved or that they really need that isn't working for them, right? So that's sort of a simple way to think about it. And you're bringing the people that you're designing for into the design process to build the thing. And it's really just problem solving. And it's a methodology that has been adopted in how we go about problem solving in phases or steps. Typically, those steps involve step one is some version of empathy where you go empathize with the people who are having certain frustrations or pain points or trying to understand how they use something and what are better solutions or ways that they'd like to go about problem solving. Then you pull all those human insights, you look for patterns and themes, and you identify better questions, right?
Mm.
Then with those better questions, that's phase two. Sometimes we call that insights. Phase three is ideation. Now you have a better question. You've defined the problem or the different problems that you maybe could go after and solve that are rooted in what humans actually really, really want to fix or address. And then you go come up with like interesting ideas. Then you figure out whatever the best idea, whatever it might be. And then the next phase is called prototyping, where you go build it. And humans do really well when you put the thing in their hand and you're saying, like, let me show you what I mean instead of me just telling you about it, right? So then you get early feedback on the scrappy idea that you have. We call that a prototype, so that you're building things in partnership with the people who want the thing when they're like, ooh, that's awesome. Oh, that doesn't solve anything for me. What about this? What about this? What about this? And then you're able to tell that story. Now, of course, we've used design thinking in ways where maybe as the person designing, you're like, but we want it to make a bunch of money, right? So, but don't you want this? And maybe it's not wanted. And sometimes amazing ideas come and go because nobody actually wants to buy it, right? But in other cases, it's more self-serving. But the perfect, what they say, like innovation is when there's an opportunity for the people who are building it and the people who want it, and you've solved something. Right. So it's like
Mm.
that little like innovation is like right in that little Venn diagram in the middle. So
Wonderful. Does it ever happen that people come into a room and don't want to participate?
yeah, I mean, it does because it's like humans, right?
Mhm.
So here's what's funny. So having had a summer camp background working with young people, it's truly amazing how open young people are. They're like, okay, like I'll do the thing, no problem. We have experience. We've learned the things. We don't want to be burned again, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be tricky when it gets in the way of the willingness to experiment a little bit, right? So the willingness to just try it. And so some of the prompts that I'll often give as a facilitator is something like, I'm not saying we have to do it forever, but for the next hour, what I'm looking for is the following mindset. At the end, I promise we can debrief and do an analysis of what it was like and what we think it rendered. But the only thing that will help us is if we actually let ourselves try this experience in this way. So there's some sort of coaching that I'll offer in that space, but I'll never forget running like an internship program. So they had this like an epic mentorship program with students who are right out of university. So no work experience. And we were like doing all of this like prep for the baggage discussion. And I remember just the room of 30, 20 somethings being like, sorry, what was it? What was the way of working before? Like, this sounds fine. We'll just work this way. And I was like, oh, right. You don't know. So I can just like teach you these methods. And only when you're up in working there, people are gonna be like, why are you doing it that way? We should just, read the research and then do the thing. And it's like, no, actually we should like go talk to the people and make sure the research matches. And there's like a there, right? Um, yeah.
So interesting. Thanks for sharing. That was really helpful to understand the thought process that goes into facilitation. So it's funny because now I'm going to go on a tangent for one little second that I actually love meetings and I loved it when there was a facilitator coming to the office. I love the idea of teams working together to build something. And I see work as a shared culture towards a positive goal. Just a little feedback that I always loved facilitation days at the office. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, obviously I do too. Like it's the facilitator's job to think about how do I get the good juice out of these smart humans, right? Like every room I'm walking into, and it's my job to elicit their wisdom. So, how do I do that? What processes would help us have those right conversations? Because what's the goal and how do I get the group there, right?
Right. That's probably very exciting on some level. That's great that you thrive on that kind of energy. For what it's worth, everything that you want to bring to a great session is what I wanted to bring to a great office culture. I mean, that's really what I liked about my job.
Yeah.
I love that the like subliminal learning moments. Like you don't know that you're learning, but that's kind of why you're having fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on. Now, Hannah, it's time to go on a quick break. When we come back, we have questions from a school partnerships lead who wants to move to the EdTech market but lacks the leadership connections. See you after the break. Finding the right vet can be rough, but there's a better way. Meet Vetted, the new era of veterinary care. Vetted has reimagined what a vet visit should be, from clinics designed to feel just like home to their personalized, proactive approach. Vetted's care team catches small issues early, preventing bigger problems down the road. And the convenience, unbeatable. Located within pet boarding centers, they make vet care easy and stress free for pets and their humans. Vetted is in New York City, Chicago, Dallas, and Boston, with more cities to come. Plus, their app provides expert advice wherever you are. Vetted makes vet care simple, thoughtful, and positively awesome. Learn more at vettedpethealth.com or download their app today. Your pet will thank you. Welcome back to Workplace Weirdness. Before we get to our listener questions, I wanted to mention that if you have a question, please drop us an email at info@workplace-weirdness.com or leave a voice message at speakpipe.com/workplace weirdness. We'd love to hear from you. Right now, I'm here with leadership facilitator and Group Forward company founder, Hannah Dubin. Hannah, we've got a listener who's struggling to transition after a recent layoff. Let's check it out. Hello, Workplace Weirdness. I was recently laid off from my role as a school and district partnerships lead. And like a lot of folks in the field, I'm seeing just how rough the job market is right now. I've been thinking about pivoting to leadership facilitation in the EdTech market. I've spent years facilitating workshops, designing learning experiences, and supporting school and district leaders through change. Now I want to apply those skills in a new way, helping EdTech companies strengthen how they partner with educational leaders, especially when it comes to implementation, culture, and long term impact. But the problem is, most of my network is made up of fellow educators and coaches, not the decision makers I need to reach. I've never really had to pitch myself before, so this whole selling my skills thing feels super awkward. I also don't have any clients yet, and I don't know how people meet those first few people in leadership positions. How do you go from having nothing lined up to actually getting paid, especially when it's just me with lots of ideas but working from my kitchen table? So, Hannah, you've been called the Swiss Army knife of facilitation. What would you say to help our listener facilitate this transition?
Yes. This is facilitation and how do you grow a business, right? Like, how do you build a business from your kitchen table? So, a couple of thoughts for this listener. One is they identified the things that they think they could be really helpful with, right? And so, I wonder if they could come up with a 10-minute to 30-minute, like, what would a workshop be to showcase your skills, where you're showing them how you can facilitate well, but you've also got experience and subject matter expertise.
Hmm.
And I wonder if in that packaging of what you say you do, it would help you not feel like you have to sell yourself, but you're like, hey, I actually have great value to offer. Here's what it looks like. It's a lunch and learn. It's a this, it's a that. And then you get your current network of people who are facilitators and educators and run that. Maybe it's recordable, it's shareable, because maybe in their network it's close to some of those decision makers. But finding ways to pilot and packaging it in a way where people can understand what you mean. Like, people need to see it. I find that in facilitation, it's like a lot of my work sometimes, let's say 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I'd be running a workshop and people would be like, this, can you do this at my company? Even though it's different at my company, I'd be like, yes, that's what I do. Right. But like, people need to see it. So, what's a way that you can get in front of people and show them that you're good at the thing?
Mm.
Right. And then making it shareable, making it that people can access it. That's like bucket one. let's go to you, Maya. I bet you have some answers too, and I have another thought.
Well, mostly I was thinking of what you said before about asking a really good question.
Yeah,
I feel like if you think of what's that good question, that will get people to understand that they need
what
what
you
you're
have.
offering.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Exactly.
have the answers to the good to the
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
But
that's
other than that, I thought that one of the interesting pieces was how do I get to the right decision makers when my
yes,
network is not those people?
yeah,
Something I was going to maybe advise is they do have some people in their network. They have coaches and other people who are sort of doing similar things, who are on their level. So maybe there's a way of leaning into that idea. Is how do you package this and offer it to the people who are in your circle already, so that then they could be your ambassadors in another circle? Any thoughts on that?
yeah. The best advice I ever got when I started, when I openly was like, I am going to be a consultant, and then I was like, oh gosh, how do I price stuff? And oh gosh, how do I like actually like I was not comfortable with selling my skills. I was like, I just want to do the facilitating, but that's not a business. The advice I got, and this is somebody who is like, let's say 30 years my senior on running their own company and being a professional facilitator. And his advice was go to people and say, I want to give you my skills for free. And in exchange, would you be willing to make some introductions for me? And here are the types of introductions that would be the best. Or like what do they mean by decision maker? In what context? What are they deciding? What does that look like? Is it within a school environment? Is it a charter school? Is it a university? So that might be interesting, and like making it as easy as possible to the people in your network to make those introductions for you, where you're like, this is really who I'm looking for. And then my other just general piece of advice is take work that may not be exactly what you want at the beginning. When I first started, I said to myself, if 60% of the contracts that I take by the end of the year, when I do a look back, are in the wheelhouse of what I want to be doing, then I will continue to build this. But if I can't get sick, if I end up just taking random stuff, contract jobs that are like not really what I want, then I'll go find a full-time job. But very quickly, I was able to find, I remember being like, oh, I'm like 80%. I had like 20% of the work that I was like, meh, but it was work. It was money in the door. And that's what I was like trying to get towards. So
Absolutely.
that helped.
And what I was trying to say before was that this person was let go from a company, but that company can still be a resource.
Oh, I
So,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of times these terminations are not actually done because the person is not good at their job. And if they have any relationship with somebody at work that could maybe recommend, that could be another avenue,
Yeah.
as well as their HR person. Believe it or not, HR people don't want to just like fire people and like never talk to them again. That's not actually what we're all about. We actually want to help. And I've been fortunate to help a lot of people find their next step. And it's actually hidden part of the job that people don't always
Mhm.
know about, but I really think that's another avenue to see if that could lead somewhere. I really wish this listener a lot of good luck. I think they have a lot of different ways to go. And I think the best part is they know where they want to go. They just need to figure out the way to get there. That's already a big, important first step. Exchanging work for connections is also a really great idea. So thank you for that one, Hannah. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Let's go on to our next listener question. Our next listener question is about a training session that seemed to go just fine until the feedback came in. Oh dear. Here we go. Hello, Workplace Weirdness. I recently got a new job working in software development. A big part of my job is running training sessions for new developers on stuff like our version control system and agile processes. I thought my last session went fine until I saw feedback from the attendees. One person even said, "This is a waste of time. I could have Googled this." Now I'm second guessing everything I said. I know that not every session will be perfect and not every person will connect with every style, but still, it's hard not to take comments like that personally, especially when you're still new and trying to prove yourself. How do you bounce back from feedback like that? And how do you know whether it's something to grow from or a sign you need to adjust your approach? That's the question. What do you think, Hannah?
Well, lots of good questions coming up. This is the listener questions. You're like, bring them on the show. Let's ask them questions.
I
And
would
you want
love to.
everything else.
Exactly.
But here's where my head goes. Number one, I get the sense that this person is required to train on some content. So I wonder how much is it is it them and the way in which they've designed the facilitated learning training session, or is it like compliance, like gotta learn the thing, right? And so yeah, you could have googled it, but like sometimes you just got to sit through the training, right? Just welcome to what some versions of trainings are. So there might be that at play, and I would say if that's how the list, if there is an element of that, then you got to let that go. It's part of your job. Like it's all good. And by the way, maybe there's a moment to be funny about it in like a self-deprecating way. Like a way to build credibility with the group is naming the thing at the beginning of the session, right? To say, hey, team, I'm a trainer on compliance. It's really sexy. You have to be here. And you all sign a thing at the end saying you sat through the thing and your camera has to be on. And guess what? We're going to do the best that we can do. And it's my job to try to make it fun. But at the end of the day, this is a requirement for the first 3 months of probation on your job, right? But if in fact it's also how you're facilitating, then I think there's a bunch of levers that you could pull. One would be who's a better trainer than you, who you trust, who could come and watch you or watch a recording of you and ask for feedback, right? And learn specifically how can you improve. What doesn't help from that feedback of I could have Googled this. It actually doesn't tell you about you as a trainer. There's not a lot of specificity around like how could I have showed up differently for this particular learner. And then if there is other data, by the way, if it's just one piece of data and everybody else was cool, did the thing, great, then take it for what it is. We know this scientifically that we always over index on the negative feedback and we don't look at the positive. But if 10 people came and one person complained, like, hey, 90%, like you're good. You're probably doing a good training, all's well. And I've been doing this professionally. And if I generally get 8 out of 10 scores, no matter who the group is, great. We did it. We accomplished the goal because I'm never going to appeal to absolutely every learner because it's human beings. I'll try, right? But I try not to stay up late at night, but see if you can find more information to learn what specifically you can improve on and then get 5% better the next training because it sounds like you're going to run trainings all the time. So you're just going to put your reps in, right? So try something new the next time and see what the feedback is.
Are you reading my notes because you said everything I wanted to say? I'm kidding though. I completely agree. Everything that you said is right on. If I could add anything, I think that it's obvious that this person's main job is software development, not being a trainer, but I'm really happy that they are taking it seriously. I think that's really admirable. Yes, your data set is small if it's just within your company. So make sure that you're giving yourself the slack, statistically. You're going to have some naysayers. If it is compliance based, then I love that idea, Hannah. I completely support of like making a little bit of a quip about it in the beginning. But if it is something that you can improve on, I like the idea of, if possible, to go back. If I don't know if these evaluations are anonymous or not, but if they're not, you could go back and ask, I would love to hear more. I want to know more about what you didn't like and how I can make that better. Just really get a more thorough understanding of that. I think until then, though, you just have to put yourself out there and try. And I really do want to encourage you to keep doing it because I think it is really difficult. You make yourself vulnerable when you stand in front of a room of people, and you're just going to get better with more practice. Yeah. And also, another thought I had was there's something a little snarky in the comment. Maybe this person is more annoyed about getting pulled away from work. I take that with a grain of salt if it's just that one response. And just to reiterate what you said before, also, taking this workshop to somebody who you really admire and who's done it before, that's a much better place to get initial feedback. So, lots of good ways to handle it. And thank you for your input there, Hannah. I think it's great. We move now from bad feedback to a very bad boy. Every week, we cover one question addressing the kind of cringeworthy work event that can give you pause for thought. And that's PAWS because this week's cringeworthy question involves a dog who decided to challenge a company's commitment to being pet friendly. Okay, here we go. Dear Workplace Weirdness, my office is pet friendly, so I decided to bring my dog in one day. He was doing great until I looked away for a few minutes and he chewed through a cable in the meeting room. I'm sitting there trying to fix it while everyone's just watching. My boss goes, "Well, it is a pet friendly office. What do you do after something like this happens? Do you just laugh it off or do you owe someone an apology?" An apology or maybe a new cable. I don't know. How would you handle this, Hannah?
Well, yeah. It's like golden rule, replace the thing, right? You're at a play date and you break the thing, and then your parent helps you pay for it, and then you take it out of your allowance. Like just normal life stuff feels relevant. If you're really worried about it, I wonder if you could actually read the pet policy, right? Does the animal need to show that they are trained in some way before you bring them into public settings? Like maybe if they bark a lot, it's probably not a fit. I'm sure there's some like very clever dog policies out there, right? Of how the company is thinking about it. But I liked your joke. Like, really, if you chose to do it again and you were like, okay, maybe my dog was anxious the first time and now they know the deal and they chewed the cable, what's your move next time? So you tie them up a little bit with a longer leash in a section of the office. Maybe you get them a collar that's like a fake plug as a joke of like, ha ha ha. But if it's a pet culture, that's what happens, right?
Yeah,
They
I
choose
mean, even the manager said,
to
"Well, it's a pet-friendly
practice.
office,"
Yeah. It's a
as he looked judgingly into the corner.
right?
No, I'm
Right.
kidding though, but
Yeah.
essentially what they were restating was like, "This stuff will happen when we have pets in the office." I don't know that this person owes anyone an apology. I would just think to myself, if I am slightly being judged on this,
Yeah.
then how comfortable am I doing it again? Because your control of your dog is still like an assessment of your skills or something. Oh, it's a little bit hard to hear that, I guess, but it can at least subliminally affect the way people might look at you a little bit.
Oh, I think you
So,
just changed my perspective to it, Maya. I was just thinking it's actually a comment on your judgment. If there is a percentage chance that your dog is going to have not great behavior in the office, then they may not be a good fit for the dog policy. And it might be better for them to do doggy daycare than for you
mhm.
to bring them into the office. It's like, it's a bit of a judgment call of being like,
But
other,
I would say, but only on the second time. Like, in other words, you
yeah, yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah,
know on the first time that this is the way this dog was gonna act. But on the second time, if you make that call and they don't act well and they don't
yeah,
behave, then already that starts, I think, looking bad a little
yeah.
bit on you.
There's a
I mean,
pattern, I think. Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, we do this with kids, unfortunately, sometimes too. And I don't
yeah,
know that
yeah.
it's always in the parents' control, but people still do, they judge. In fact, we had a different listener question a while ago about a child who came to the office party. It was a Christmas party, and they decided to take down the ornaments and break them. And the parent was really beside themselves because they felt immediately like, what's my boss going to say? They invited me not to ruin their very expensive ornaments. So, in that specific example, we advised that they have their child write an apology note. So in this case, it's a dog, so you can't really do that. But I do like the idea of maybe a cable or something. Maybe you could give back a cable with, maybe you could do a fake apology from
And
your
tie it
dog or
with a
something.
dog bone and
Yes, yes,
able
yes,
to be like, "Woof,
exactly.
woof, sorry about that," or like,
Yeah.
"Woof, woof, woof's a daisy," like something cute.
Like I
Yeah,
wouldn't make such a big deal out of it, but if you think it could happen again, just try not to repeat it. That's my
yeah,
biggest piece of advice.
yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. But it is a pet friendly office. Well, from EdTech career pivots to pet friendly life lessons, you've shown us how to facilitate a positive attitude when confronting challenges. Thank you so much, Hannah. That's our show today. I want to thank you, Hannah, for sharing your experience and facilitation tips with us. Any last thoughts before we go our separate ways?
Oh, I guess I would just say if facilitation is something that people wanna get better at, the only way you get better at facilitation is if you facilitate groups. That's it. You have to practice this stuff. So, you can read a book. There's lots of blog articles that I write, all that kind of stuff, and there's great stuff in there, but it only matters when you're actually in the room and you're responding to the needs of the group, and you just gotta get the reps in, and that's it. You just, like, you go to the gym for a reason. Just consistency and practice, that's the way that you're able to improve this type of work. So if your listeners are keen to level up, that would be my recommendation.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much. We will be back soon with more workplace weirdness. If you've enjoyed our dive into the strange and funny side of office life, don't forget to subscribe. And if you've got some weirdness in the workplace, drop us an email at info@workplace weirdness.com or leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/workplace weirdness. We might feature your question in an upcoming episode. Until next time, this is Maya Kadar Kovalsky reminding you to embrace the quirks and make the most out of the office chaos. In the meantime, keep working and whenever possible, stay weird. Today's show was produced by me, Maya Kadar Kovalsky, and Felicia Wang, and written by Dana Burnell. Molly Citram is our content curator. Thanks to Billy Samoa Salivi and the rest of the team at Podify who help engineer this episode. And thanks also to Hannah Dubin for joining us on today's episode. And thanks to you for listening to Workplace Weirdness. Make sure you're subscribed to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for another breakdown of all things weird from a workplace near you.